I have always believed that our childhoods shape us more than anything else. Mine felt like a cage, and sometimes I think I am still trying to find the key to escape it. My name is Emma, and my earliest memories are not of play or laughter but of silence, heavy, suffocating silence that wrapped itself around me like a blanket I could never throw off. I was a quiet child, not because I wanted to be, but because I learned very early that quietness was safe. My parents were strict, so strict that sometimes I wondered if they had forgotten what it meant to be children themselves. No playing outside, they would say. No friends, no hobbies, no distractions. Their words became the walls of my world. Other kids ran through the streets, their laughter echoing in the afternoon sun. I used to watch them from the window, my forehead pressed against the glass. I longed to join them, to feel the grass under my feet, to scrape my knees and then laugh about it. But my parents' rules were clear, I was to stay inside. I could read my school books, sit in the living room, or help my mother with chores. That was it. I didn't go to kindergarten like most children. My parents said it was unnecessary, a waste of time. Home is enough, my father told me, his voice firm, his expression final. But home was not enough. It was lonely, unbearably lonely. I grew up surrounded by walls and rules, but not by the sound of other children's voices. When I finally started school, I was terrified. I remember clutching the straps of my bag so tightly my knuckles turned white. The world outside seemed too big, too loud. I didn't know how to talk to other kids, how to laugh with them, or even how to say hello. My first day, I sat in the back of the classroom, trying to make myself invisible. But children have a way of breaking barriers adults cannot. A girl with pigtails smiled at me, slid a crayon across the desk, and whispered, "Do you want to draw with me?" My heart pounded, and though my voice trembled, I said yes. That was the beginning of friendship for me. Even though I stayed quiet, even though I told myself, be quiet, be safe, little by little I found a few friends who accepted me as I was. Still, I never forgot my parents' rules. They lived inside me like an invisible script. At school, when the teacher asked a question, I wanted to raise my hand, but then I would hear my mother's voice in my head, "Don't talk too much. Don't draw attention to yourself." So I stayed quiet, nodding silently when I knew the answer, always afraid of making a mistake. There was one thing that made my heart beat faster with joy, drawing. Whenever I had a piece of paper and a pencil, I would lose myself in shapes and colors. My little hands created worlds I could not live in. Flowers, animals, faces, I drew them all. Drawing was my way of speaking when my voice failed me. It was freedom in lines and curves, a secret rebellion on paper. But even that freedom was taken from me. One afternoon, I showed my mother a picture I had drawn of a house with a garden, a place that looked nothing like ours. I hoped she would smile, maybe even say she was proud. Instead, she frowned. "Emma," she said sharply, "this is a waste of time. Drawing will not feed you. Focus on your studies." Her words crushed me. My little dream folded itself into silence, just like I did. I hid my drawings after that, sketching in notebooks only when I was sure no one was watching. I told myself, don't hope for too much. Just do what they want. Be the good daughter. Stay safe. Sometimes, when the nights were long and the house was quiet, I would imagine another life. In that life, I had friends who came over to play, parents who clapped when I showed them my art, and freedom to laugh out loud without fear of being told to stop. But morning always came, and with it the reality of my life. Looking back, I can see how much my childhood shaped the woman I became. Silence became my shield, and obedience became my survival. I didn't know then that this silence, this habit of staying small, would follow me into adulthood, into love, into choices I would one day regret. But in those early years, I was just a little girl who wanted to play, who wanted to laugh, who wanted to be seen. I was Emma, the quiet child who dreamed of happiness but didn't yet know what it looked like. As I grew older, my world didn't grow with me. It stayed the same, rigid, narrow, and filled with rules that weren't mine. By the time I was a teenager, I had learned how to wear silence like a second skin. I smiled when I was expected to, nodded when spoken to, and obeyed without question. But inside me, something small and stubborn kept whispering, there has to be more than this. I remember the afternoons after school. Other kids lingered in the playground, laughing, chasing each other, swapping secrets and jokes. I walked straight home, carrying my books, my feet dragging slowly even though I knew my mother would scold me if I was late. Sometimes, I wanted to stay back, just for a little while, just to taste what freedom felt like. But I never did. The weight of my parents' rules pulled me back every time. At home, my life was a repetition of chores and studies. My parents were proud that I was a good student, and they reminded me often that grades were all that mattered. Your future depends on this, my father would say. No time for nonsense. By nonsense, he meant everything I loved, drawing, music, laughter. But art never left me. Even though I knew my parents didn't approve, I couldn't stop myself. I drew in secret, my notebooks filled with sketches of faces I had seen only once, of trees I wished I could climb, of dresses I could never wear. Sometimes, I even drew wings, imagining what it would feel like to fly away from the walls of my home. Once, in high school, my teacher noticed one of my sketches. She picked it up from my desk and smiled. "Emma, this is wonderful," she said. Her voice was warm, her eyes kind. I felt my face flush with pride, a feeling I had almost forgotten. "Have you thought about joining the art club?" she asked. For a moment, hope lit up inside me like sunlight breaking through clouds. The art club. A place where I could draw freely, where maybe I wouldn't feel so strange, so invisible. I imagined sitting with other students, sharing ideas, laughing, belonging. That evening, I went home bursting with excitement. I waited for the right moment to ask. "Mom," I said carefully, "my teacher suggested I join the art club. It's after school just once a week, and..." No, her answer was sharp, immediate, like a door slamming in my face. "But..." "No, Emma. You don't need such distractions. Art won't help you in life. You need to focus on your studies. That is what matters." The hope that had filled me drained away in an instant. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Okay," I whispered. I went to my room, closed the door, and cried quietly into my pillow. It wasn't just about art, it was about wanting something for myself and being told, once again, that I couldn't have it. It was the same with sports. I loved watching the other girls run on the field, their hair flying, their laughter echoing. I wanted to run with them, to feel strong, fast, alive. But when I asked if I could join the team, my father shook his head. "Sports are for boys. You don't need that. Focus on your studies." So I stayed inside, watching life pass me by through windows and closed doors. My world grew smaller even as I grew taller. I learned to hide my desires, to tuck them away like the drawings in my notebooks. Outwardly, I was the obedient daughter. Inwardly, I was a girl filled with quiet hunger, for freedom, for expression, for a life that felt like mine. High school passed in this blur of restrictions. I studied hard, because I had no other choice. I got good grades, because failure wasn't an option in my house. Teachers praised me, classmates respected me, but none of it felt real. I wasn't proud of my achievements, I was just relieved that they might keep my parents satisfied, at least for a while. Sometimes, though, at night when everyone was asleep, I would lie awake and imagine another version of myself. In that world, I was free. I painted murals on walls, ran barefoot through fields, laughed with friends until my stomach hurt. In that world, my parents didn't scold me for dreaming, they encouraged me. But when morning came, reality pressed down on me again, heavy and unyielding. Looking back, I realize how much I yearned to be seen, not just as a daughter, not just as a student, but as Emma. Just Emma. A girl who loved colors and laughter, who wanted to run and sing and be alive. But my parents couldn't see that. They only saw the version of me they had created. And so I learned to live two lives. The outside life, where I was obedient, quiet, and studious. And the inside life, where I dreamed, drew, and longed for freedom. Those two lives existed side by side, and I carried them with me into adulthood. I didn't know then that one day, when I met Ryan, I would cling to him so fiercely, not just because I loved him, but because he made me feel seen in a way my parents never did. But before that moment came, I was still just a girl trapped in a world of rules, quietly whispering to herself, "One day, Emma. One day, you will live the life you dream of." By the time I turned 18, I was hungry for something more. I didn't know exactly what I was searching for, freedom, love, or just proof that my life could be different. All I knew was that my heart felt restless. That's when I met Ryan. It happened during my first year of college. College was supposed to be my escape, my chance to finally live outside of the walls my parents had built around me. I remember walking across campus, nervous but excited, clutching my books like they were a shield. Everything felt bigger than me, so many people, so many voices, so much possibility. Ryan stood out immediately. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with messy brown hair that looked like he didn't care but somehow suited him perfectly. He had this way of smiling like the world belonged to him. He wasn't shy, not like me. He wasn't afraid to laugh loudly, to speak his mind, to walk into any room as if he was meant to be there. And when he looked at me, I felt like maybe I belonged, too. We first talked in the library. I was sitting at a corner table, sketching in my notebook when I should have been studying. Ryan slid into the chair across from me without asking, a mischievous grin on his face. "Wow," he said, peeking at my drawing, "you're really good. Is that supposed to be me?" I blushed instantly, snapping the notebook closed. "No. Just something I was working on." He leaned back in his chair, still grinning. "Well, if you ever want to draw me, let me know. I'll pose for free." I laughed, despite myself. No one ever made me laugh so quickly. That was the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Ryan found excuses to talk to me. He'd walk with me after class, sit with me in the cafeteria, and text me late at night just to say something silly like, "Are you still awake?" Because I'm definitely not. I had never met someone like him before. He made me feel beautiful, special, alive. When he told me I had the prettiest smile, I believed him, even though I'd never thought much of it before. When he said he liked how quiet I was, I felt like maybe my silence wasn't a flaw, but something gentle and unique. We started spending more and more time together. He told me about his childhood, his dreams, his frustrations. I told him things I had never told anyone else. That I wanted to be an artist, that I felt trapped by my parents, that sometimes I drew wings because I wanted to fly away. Ryan listened, and he didn't laugh. He held my hand and said, "Emma, you deserve to be free. You deserve everything you dream about." I fell in love with him, completely and recklessly. I thought he was the answer to everything I'd been missing. He made me believe in a life outside of my parents' rules, a life filled with laughter, love, and belonging. But love has a way of blinding you. Ryan wasn't perfect. He had a temper, nothing too alarming at first, just little bursts of frustration when things didn't go his way. If I said I needed to study instead of going out, he would pout, telling me I cared more about books than about him. At first, I thought it was cute. I thought it meant he loved me so much he couldn't stand being without me. But slowly, those moments grew heavier. One evening, as we sat on a bench near the park, Ryan turned to me suddenly. "Emma," he said, "why are you wasting your time with all these classes? You don't need a degree. You can just be with me. We'll get married, start a family. I'll take care of you." The way he said it, so certain, so confident, made my heart race. A part of me panicked. College was my chance to dream, wasn't it? But another part of me, the lonely girl who had always been told no, felt flattered. Ryan wasn't just saying he loved me. He was saying he wanted me forever. I was only 18. I didn't know how to balance love and dreams. I didn't know how to separate what I wanted from what someone else wanted for me. And so, when Ryan asked me to marry him, I said yes. I stopped going to classes. I told myself it was worth it. Love was more important than school, more important than art, more important than everything. Ryan said he would take care of me, and I believed him. For the first time in my life, I wasn't listening to my parents, I was listening to my heart. When I told my parents, they weren't happy. My father shook his head, my mother sighed, but I didn't care. For once, I wasn't obeying. For once, I was choosing something for myself. I convinced myself that choosing Ryan meant choosing freedom. In the beginning, it felt like a dream. We laughed, we kissed, we stayed up late talking about the future. I felt safe in his arms, like maybe this was the life I had always wanted. But even in those early days, there were cracks I chose to ignore. The way he frowned when I wore clothes he didn't like. The way he grew silent when I wanted to see my friends. The way he reminded me, with a joking smile, "You don't need anyone else, Emma. You have me." I didn't see it then. I only saw the man I loved, the man who had told me I was beautiful, the man who made me laugh when I was too shy to speak. I held on to him tightly, believing love would be enough to carry me through anything. I didn't know then that love can also be a cage. At first, life with Ryan felt like the freedom I had always wanted. No more parents hovering over me, no more rules that suffocated me. I thought I was finally living on my own terms. But slowly, without me realizing it, Ryan's love began to feel like another kind of prison. The first time I noticed it was something small. I had dressed up to meet one of my old school friends for coffee. I put on a blouse I liked, with soft colors and little flowers embroidered along the sleeves. I looked at myself in the mirror and felt almost pretty. When I came out of the bedroom, Ryan frowned. "You're wearing that?" he asked. I froze. "What's wrong with it?" He shrugged, but his eyes lingered on me. "It's too. I don't know. Too much. You don't need to draw attention. Just wear something simple." I hesitated. I wanted to tell him that I liked the blouse, that it made me feel good. But instead, I went back into the room and changed. At the time, it seemed easier to please him than to fight. It didn't stop there. He started commenting on my tattoos, saying they didn't look feminine. He told me my short hair made me look too boyish. "Grow it out," he said once, running his hand through it. "You'd be prettier with long hair." I laughed nervously, but inside, a piece of me shrank. I had always been told by my parents that my hobbies, my choices, my desires didn't matter. I thought Ryan would be different. But here I was again, bending, adjusting, trying to fit into someone else's idea of who I should be. The isolation began slowly too. At first, it felt sweet, even flattering. He would say, "You don't need them, Emma. You have me." And I believed him. I thought that was love, being everything for each other. So I stopped meeting my friends as often. I stopped drawing. My world began to shrink again, this time around Ryan. When Lily was born, I thought things would change. Holding her in my arms, so tiny and perfect, I believed Ryan and I would grow closer. And for a while, it was true. He kissed her forehead, he held her while she slept, he whispered, "She looks like you." My heart swelled with happiness. But the sweetness didn't last. Ryan grew impatient. He hated that I was tired all the time. He complained that I didn't dress up for him anymore. "You've changed," he said, as if becoming a mother wasn't supposed to change me. He started staying out late. With friends, he'd say casually when I asked. His tone made me feel foolish for even questioning him. I told myself not to worry, but I lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, feeling the space in our bed grow colder. Then came the shouting. It started with little things, me forgetting to take the trash out, dinner not being ready on time, Lily crying too loudly. His voice would rise, sharp and cruel. "You're not a good wife," he spat once, his face red with anger. I cried quietly that night, holding Lily close to my chest. I told myself he was stressed, that he didn't mean it, that things would get better. But deep inside, a seed of fear was planted. The first time he hit me, I couldn't believe it. His hand moved so quickly, so suddenly, across my face. For a moment, the world stopped. I remember the sting on my cheek, the ringing in my ears, the disbelief in my heart. This isn't Ryan, I told myself. This is a mistake. He didn't mean it. He apologized afterward. He swore it would never happen again. He held me and whispered, "I just lost control. You know I love you." And I wanted so badly to believe him. I forgave him even though something inside me broke that day. I went to my parents once, desperate for help. I sat at their kitchen table, tears running down my face. "Please," I begged, "I can't do this. Ryan hurts me. I want to leave." My mother's eyes were cold, my father's voice stern. "You are married now, Emma. Marriage is not easy. You must stay with your husband." Their words crushed me. I felt invisible, like the frightened little girl I had once been. I left their house with Lily in my arms, more alone than ever. So I went back to Ryan. I told myself things would change. That love was stronger than anger. That he would remember the man he used to be. And sometimes, he did. There were days when he was gentle, when he played with Lily, when he kissed me softly. Those moments kept me there, tied to him, even when the bad days outnumbered the good. When I became pregnant again, I hoped it would heal us. I hoped a second child would bring back the laughter, the love, the closeness we once had. When Jake was born, I felt a joy so pure, it hurt. His tiny hands, his little laugh, his eyes that looked just like mine, he was perfect. But Ryan didn't come to the hospital. He didn't even hold Jake when I brought him home. Instead, he looked at me with tired eyes and said, "Why are you here so soon?" That was the moment I realized something inside him had changed forever. Or maybe it had always been there, and I was just too blind to see. Ryan had a girlfriend now. He didn't even hide it. He looked me in the eye and said, "She loves me more than you ever did." His words cut deeper than any slap. I felt small, unimportant, discarded. But I stayed. I stayed because I didn't know how to leave. I stayed because I had no money, no support, 2 small children depending on me. I stayed because, even after everything, a part of me still loved him. Love can be blind. But control, that was something I could no longer ignore. There are moments in life when you feel the ground shift beneath your feet, when everything you thought you could endure suddenly feels unbearable. For me, that moment came slowly, quietly, until it built into a storm I couldn't ignore anymore. Ryan had always been difficult, but after Jake was born, he became someone I didn't recognize at all. He didn't try to hide his late nights anymore. He didn't try to soften his words when he spoke to me. Sometimes, he didn't even bother lying. He would come home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine, with a smile that wasn't meant for me. I tried to stay calm for the children. I tried to create a safe bubble inside our home, even if Ryan's presence made it tremble. I would wake up early, pack Lily's lunch, play with Jake, sing them songs, and pretend everything was fine. But inside, I was crumbling. The breaking point came one night when Ryan didn't come home at all. I stayed awake, staring at the clock, every hour dragging like a lifetime. My chest tightened with each passing minute. Where was he? Was he safe? Was he with her? By the time the sun came up, I was shaking with anger and fear. When he finally walked through the door the next morning, he looked at me with casual indifference. "What?" he said when he saw my face. "Why are you looking at me like that? Where were you?" My voice trembled, but I forced the words out. "With a friend," he said flatly, throwing his jacket onto the couch. "Which friend?" I demanded. "Do you even care that I stayed up all night worried sick? That your children?" "Stop," he snapped, cutting me off. His voice was sharp, like a knife. "Don't start this, Emma. I don't have to explain myself to you." That was the moment I felt something inside me snap. For years, I had bent myself into smaller and smaller pieces, trying to keep the peace, trying to make him happy, trying to survive. But in that moment, all the fear, the silence, the loneliness boiled over. "You don't get to do this anymore," I whispered, though my voice grew stronger with each word. "You don't get to walk in and out of this house like we mean nothing to you. You don't get to treat me like I'm invisible. I'm your wife, Ryan. I'm the mother of your children. I deserve better than this." He stared at me, shocked. For the first time in years, I saw hesitation in his eyes. But it didn't last. His face twisted with anger, and he stepped closer. "You think you're strong now?" he hissed. "You think you can talk to me like that?" For the first time, I didn't back down. My hands shook, my heart pounded, but I stood tall. "If you ever hit me again, I will leave," I said. My voice was steady, louder than I expected. "I mean it this time, Ryan. I will take Lily and Jake, and I will leave." He blinked at me, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. I had never stood up to him like that before. The silence between us was heavy, filled with years of pain and fear. Then, without a word, he turned and walked out of the house, slamming the door behind him. I sank to the floor, shaking, tears spilling down my face. My body trembled, not just from fear but from the shock of what I had just done. For the first time in years, I had stood up for myself. I had drawn a line. And even though I was terrified, I also felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: power. That day marked the beginning of my change. I realized I couldn't keep living in the shadows of his control. I couldn't keep teaching my children that love meant pain, that silence was survival. I had to show them that strength mattered, that dignity mattered, that happiness mattered. But change doesn't happen all at once. Even after that night, Ryan didn't disappear. He still lived with us. He still got angry. He still said cruel things. But something had shifted in me. I wasn't the same Emma who had always cowered. I started small. I began baking cakes, selling them to neighbors and friends. At first, it was just a way to make a little money, but it quickly became more than that. Every cake I baked, every smile from a neighbor who loved my work, reminded me that I had value beyond being Ryan's wife. When Ryan found out, he was furious. "Why are you wasting time with this nonsense?" he shouted. "You don't need to work. I'll take care of us." But this time, I looked him in the eye. "No, Ryan. I need to do this, for me, for the kids. I'm not stopping." He didn't know what to say. He stormed off, slamming doors, muttering under his breath. But he didn't stop me. And for the first time, I realized he was losing control of me. That night, after I put Lily and Jake to bed, I sat in the quiet kitchen with a cup of tea. I thought about the girl I used to be, the shy, obedient daughter who never questioned her parents, the young woman who gave up her dreams for love, the wife who stayed silent through tears and pain. And then I thought about the woman I was becoming. A woman who baked cakes with pride. A woman who set boundaries. A woman who, even though she was scared, refused to be silent anymore. That was my breaking point. Not the moment when everything fell apart, but the moment when I finally decided I deserved to build something better. For so many years, I had lived only for other people, first my parents, then Ryan, then my children. Somewhere along the way, I lost myself. I forgot what I liked, what I dreamed about, what made me feel alive. But after that night when I finally stood up to Ryan, something inside me shifted. I realized I couldn't wait for him to change anymore. If I wanted a different life, I had to start building it myself. At first, it was just small steps. Baking had opened a door for me. It wasn't just about cakes, it was about creating something beautiful with my own hands, something that people appreciated. Each order I delivered filled me with a quiet pride. For the first time in years, I felt useful, capable, and even happy. I began to notice little things that used to bring me joy. I cut my hair short again, even though Ryan hated it. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I felt lighter, freer. I started wearing colorful clothes. Yellows, blues, and reds instead of the dull grays and blacks Ryan preferred. It was like I was painting myself back into existence. One afternoon, as I twirled in front of the mirror in a new bright dress, Lily looked at me with wide eyes. "Mom," she said, "you look so happy." Her words stopped me in my tracks. That tiny sentence meant everything. For so long, my children had seen me tired, sad, or silent. Now, they were seeing something different, a spark, a glimpse of joy. I realized then that finding myself wasn't just for me, it was for them too. They needed a mother who could show them what strength looked like. Sarah, my neighbor, became a lifeline during this time. She invited me over for tea often, and slowly I began opening up about my life. At first, I was embarrassed. I didn't want her pity. But instead of judgment, she gave me understanding. "You've carried so much alone, Emma," she told me one evening. "You don't have to anymore. We're here for you." Her words melted something inside me. For years, I had lived in silence, believing no one would care, that no one could help. But here was someone offering friendship without conditions. Through Sarah, I met other women in the neighborhood. They invited me to small gatherings, encouraged me to share my baking, and cheered me on when I doubted myself. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged. Ryan didn't like it, of course. He complained that I was wasting time with gossip or acting different. But instead of backing down, I learned to set rules. No, Ryan, I told him one evening when he started shouting about me spending time with Sarah. My voice didn't tremble this time. I will not stop seeing my friends. I'm allowed to have a life. He stared at me, as though he couldn't believe the woman standing in front of him was his wife. Maybe he thought I'd always be silent, always obedient. But I wasn't anymore. Finding myself also meant facing the truth about my marriage. Deep down, I knew Ryan wasn't going to change. He still had his temper, still said cruel things, still came home late with excuses. But I no longer hung my happiness on his moods. I stopped trying to fix him. Instead, I focused on fixing me. Some nights, after the kids were asleep, I would sit by the window with a notebook. I started writing down my thoughts, my memories, my feelings. Sometimes I cried as I wrote, but other times I smiled, remembering little moments of joy I had long forgotten, my love for drawing, the way I used to laugh with my school friends, the freedom I felt when I was a girl running barefoot outside, before the rules closed in. Through writing, I started to remember who Emma really was. Not just a wife. Not just a mother. But a person with dreams, with creativity, with a voice that deserved to be heard. I began to imagine a different future. Maybe one where I had my own small bakery. Maybe one where I could take Lily to art classes and let Jake run wild with his toy cars without fear. Maybe one where I could wake up without a knot in my stomach, knowing the day would be mine to shape. It was a fragile dream, but it was mine. And holding on to it gave me strength. One evening, I watched Lily sketching with her pencils. She hummed softly to herself, lost in her little world of colors. My heart ached. She reminded me so much of myself at her age, except she was braver. I knelt beside her and kissed her head. Never stop drawing, Lily, I whispered. Never stop doing what you love. She looked up at me with a smile, her eyes shining. I won't, Mom. In that moment, I promised myself that I would fight, not just for my happiness, but for hers and Jake's too. I wanted them to grow up knowing that love wasn't supposed to hurt, that dreams weren't supposed to be sacrificed, that their voices mattered. Finding myself didn't mean I had it all figured out. Some days were still hard. Some mornings, I still woke up tired, wondering how I would get through. Ryan still had his temper, and his words could still cut deep. But the difference was, I no longer let those moments define me. I had found pieces of myself again, through baking, through friendship, through courage. And with each piece, I was building the woman I was meant to be. For the first time in years, I didn't just exist. I was beginning to live. Hope is a fragile thing. For years, I thought I had lost it completely. But I've learned that even in the darkest nights, hope can return, quietly, like the first light of dawn. Life with Ryan hasn't magically transformed. He still struggles with his temper, still says things that hurt, and still doesn't always see me the way I wish he would. But something has changed, and that something is me. I am not the same girl who bowed her head and accepted everything in silence. I am not the same young woman who gave up her dreams at the first whisper of love. I am different now. Every morning, I wake up before the sun. I brew my tea, pack Lily's lunch, and make breakfast for Jake. I look at their faces, bright with innocence and curiosity, and I remind myself why I keep going. They are my reason, my strength, my future. Lily loves to draw and sing. Sometimes, I find her sitting in her room, sketching the world as she sees it, trees taller than houses, people smiling under big round suns. She draws me too, and every time, she adds a smile to my face, even on days when I forget to wear one. Jake is wild and full of laughter. He races his toy cars across the floor, makes silly faces, and shouts with joy that fills the house. When I watch him, I realize that despite everything, there is still laughter in my life, still moments of pure, unshakable love. Sarah still visits often. Sometimes we bake together, sometimes we just sit and talk. She reminds me that I am not alone, that friendship is as healing as medicine. Through her, I've met women who share their own struggles, their own stories of survival. Listening to them has made me stronger, and telling my story has helped me breathe more freely. Baking has grown into something bigger than I imagined. What started as small orders from neighbors has become a steady stream of requests. Birthday cakes, wedding cakes, little boxes of cookies. It feels like I'm building something, brick by brick, flower by flower, a life of my own making. I even allow myself to dream of opening a little bakery one day, with bright windows and the smell of cinnamon greeting everyone who walks in. Ryan doesn't always approve, but I don't let his disapproval stop me anymore. I've learned that I don't need his permission to exist. I don't need his validation to feel proud of myself. For years, I thought love meant sacrificing everything, but now I know love should never erase who you are. Sometimes, late at night, I still feel tired. I still wonder what my life could have been if I had made different choices, if I had stood up for myself sooner. But then I remind myself, I can't rewrite the past. What I can do is shape the future, for myself, for Lily, for Jake. And that's what I intend to do. I don't know if Ryan will ever truly change. Maybe one day he will. Maybe he won't. But I have changed, and that matters. I've learned to draw boundaries, to protect myself, to find joy in small things, and to trust in my own strength. Most importantly, I've learned that I am not invisible. I am not powerless. I am not just a wife, or just a mother, I am Emma. And Emma still has dreams. The other day, as I tucked Lily and Jake into bed, Lily whispered, "Mom, you're the strongest person I know." Her words filled me with a warmth I can't describe. Strong. For so long, I felt weak, broken, trapped. But my daughter sees me as strong. And maybe she's right. Maybe surviving, enduring, and slowly rebuilding myself is strength. As I kissed her goodnight and turned off the light, I felt something stir inside me, a quiet certainty that I will be okay. That we will be okay. Because hope isn't about everything being perfect. It's about believing that things can get better, even if it's little by little. And I do believe that now. For the first time in years, I can close my eyes at night and whisper to myself, not as a wish but as a promise. One day, Emma, you will be happy. You will find peace. And I know that day will come. Thank you for watching this emotional love story on the Love Chapter by Aree. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more heart-touching stories. Tell us in the comments which country or place you are watching from. We'd love to know where our family of viewers is growing around the world.